Okay, so this is a clip from the Chris Williamson podcast with Jordan Peterson with population collapse is coming. This is so interesting because I think there's two camps to the story. One that believes that the planet is currently overpopulated and is continuing to grow that way. And a second camp recently talking about how population collapse is actually the bigger problem. People like, I guess, Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk are proponents of this, while Bill Gates and I think other billionaires are also saying that overpopulation is more the bigger issue. So curious to see which one's true.
Rolling the clock forward, you and Elon tweeted recently about population collapse. What do you think is going to happen there?
Oh, well, I've thought for at least 10 years that the biggest problem in 50 years will be that there's just not enough people.
I remember hearing you say a few years ago that you thought we'd peak at about 9 billion.
Yeah, we probably won't hit 9. Yeah. And I
Think
knew the
about
stats
this.
because...
Think about how crazy it is.
That's so crazy to think about because even during like my lifetime, right? I think when I was a kid, the population was at 7 billion, but now I think it's at like 8 and slowly reaching 9 billion. So it's crazy to think that, population collapse is even something that's being debated, but it seems like it's trending that way if we look at the data. So let's listen further.
It is to think that we might be living on Earth right now at a time with the most number of humans that are ever going to exist at one time ever.
Yeah, that's highly probable. And, the
That blows my mind.
The population collapse in developed countries is precipitous, right? It's like we fall off a cliff.
Because it's the same, everyone knows this from the pandemic, the R0 number. If fewer people are reproducing, next generation you have fewer people to reproduce as fewer people are reproducing, and it...
Yeah, I think that's also an important thing to remember is that a lot of things like this with so many people, right? A sample size of, let's say, 8 billion. What you're going to see is exponential growth as well as exponential decline, right? So obviously during our lifetime, we've seen a decent amount of exponential growth, right? I think it took thousands of years to get to 1 to 2 to 3 billion. But now what we've seen is like a steep exponential curve. But now what we might see is a steep exponential curve back down where population collapse might happen. I'm still like wrapping my head around it.
Well, I worked on a UN committee, it's got to be 10 years ago now, to help draft the UN Secretary General's report on sustainable economic development. And so I looked at all sorts of things like that. I was very curious, for example, about, because people have been beating the overpopulation drum since, well, it really kicked in the 1960s, because there were dire predictions. By the year 2000, the Club of Rome came out and said, well, there'll be riots and mass starvation and mass movement of migrants and all the things you hear about climate change because there's too many people on the planet. And that just didn't happen at all. It wasn't just wrong. It was anti-true. It was absolutely wrong.
So yeah, that's actually true. I think recently came out like a viral post that Greta Thunberg, I think in 2018 or something, said that in 5 years, so in 2023, our climate will be fucked or something. Obviously that hasn't happened yet, and she deleted her tweet.
What happened instead was that everyone got way richer, and the bottom section of the population in terms of economic distribution got lifted out of poverty. Inequality still exists, but that's that power law phenomenon we already talked about. Not that that's trivial, it's just unbelievably difficult to determine what to do with. There are solutions, but certainly getting rid of capitalism isn't the solution. And so I looked at population trends and first of all found, not that this is an act of genius or anything, that as soon as you educate women, the size of family shrinks precipitously, like below replacement. And that's partly because women have other options. That's a huge
We're seeing this play out.
Oh, yes. I mean, all the countries in the West are way below replacement. Korea's way below replacement. South Korea, Japan, way below replacement. Yeah.
I think the number one...
Yeah, that is interesting. I guess, it's more correlation than causation in the sense that as a society becomes more equal and women are more educated, there's less births. I mean, it's crazy because if you look at Africa or certain poorer countries in South America, their population is rising, right? They're having 3-5 kids on average. Whereas, Japan and South Korea are reaching dangerous levels of population collapse already. But even the US, right? They say something like, 1 in 3 men within the past 12 months haven't had sex or haven't had sex ever. So we're having way less sex as a population, and girls are also just not having as many kids, right? Girls are more focused on career, educational attainment, and having kids, which is kind of like a priority in a lot of developing countries, isn't the case when it comes to more developed countries and the more advanced and equal a society becomes. It's very interesting.
Number one on the planet might be Chad, the country.
In terms of growth?
8 children on average.
Yeah, I think Nigeria will have more people in it than China by the end of the century. So, yeah. And Musk, he's a far-looking man, and so he's looking around the apocalyptic corner, let's say. Like, we're running out of people. And what that means...
I'm curious, who do you guys trust more, right? Elon Musk is on the camp of population collapse. Bill Gates is on the side of overpopulation. Which one do you guys trust more? I'm curious.
What that means, of course, is that you run out of young people. Right, you don't run out of old people first because everyone who is here now is going to be 30 years older in 30 years, and it'll be young people we don't have enough of, and of course, young people are the ones who do the innovation and are going to do most of the heavy lifting, etc. And so there's going to be a terrible shortage of young people.
Well, you see this with some of the things that I posted that
Yeah, I guess that's the thing too, is that as a population gets more old, that's also a telltale sign that there's more deaths than births. So that's actually what's happening to Japan and South Korea. It's an aging population, and there's just not enough young people. And you need young people in a country because obviously that makes up most of the workforce, right? So that's actually kind of crazy though. I might become like a rare breed as a Japanese person, right? If all Japanese people go extinct and I'm still alive, I'm like the dodo bird of humans. The fuck am I saying?
2.1% of women are childless by 30, and both men and women are replying to that tweet saying, well, good, there's too many people on the planet in any case.
I know,
I'm thinking
I know.
how this NPC midwittery is so dangerous because it makes people believe that they actually have something grounded backing up their claims.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and this idea that the planet has too many people on it, there's no sentiment more implicitly genocidal than that statement.
Yeah, that is true. Like, how do people even measure that? And how do we know, right? We're continually finding new resources and new things about the planet. So who is making these claims that the planet has a certain cap on the number of people that they can have, right? Because the planet doesn't need us in the sense that, let's say that all humans go extinct, animals will start repopulating cities and it will look completely different. The planet doesn't need us, but we also at the same time don't know how we come to a conclusion where the planet has like a certain number of people that it can hold as a population. Yeah, it's interesting.
So what do you mean too many people? Exactly. And what do you mean the planet? And what do you propose to do about that exactly? Mass abortion, is that your answer? Or should we do something a little more dramatic? Maybe we'll just shame people out of having children. And I've seen people do that. Literally, I saw a professor when I was at a TED, I think it doesn't matter. It was a number of professors talking to a couple hundred students. And one of the professors, who was an environmentalist activist type, and he got up on stage and shook his finger to the whole young crowd saying that him and his wife had only decided to have one child, which was, in my opinion, one child too many for him. And told all the young people there if they had a shred of ethical decency that they would severely limit their reproductive potential. And
Yeah, that's true. I feel like that's actually already happening in the U.S. that I've seen. There kind of is like a bit of shaming of bringing people in the world. I'm making a video on this topic right now, and I asked people on the street, and some of the common answers amongst women in their 20s was that they don't want to bring children in this world with all the problems that's going on with the world. And that was really interesting to me because I pushed back and I was like, well, look, there's problems that have always existed in society. In fact, many people might even argue that this is probably the best time to be alive, right? There's no war going on, at least not yet. As in, let's say like our grandparents' generation, right? They were born during World War II, and depending on the country you're in, the average citizen wasn't living that damn well, right? Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Whether you guys are in the camp that a bigger problem is overpopulation or population collapse, and if you want to see more reaction videos, like and subscribe, and if you want to check out the main channel, link in description.